There is a phone call I have taken more times than I can count, and it always sounds the same. A son or a daughter, voice a little shaky, saying, "My mum signed the house over to me 3 years ago, and now the council is refusing to help with her care fees. They're saying she still owns it. How is that even possible?" And I have to sit there and tell a grown adult that the single most well-meaning decision their family ever made just cost them somewhere in the region of 40, 50, sometimes £60,000. Money they will never, ever get back. And the worst part, the part that genuinely stays with me, is that they did nothing wrong. They did the exact thing half the country is being told to do at kitchen tables and in comment sections right now. So before you pick up a pen and sign anything, give me the next 15 minutes, because I am going to show you precisely why just give the house to the kids is quite possibly the most expensive mistake a homeowner in Britain can make. And then, because I am not here to just frighten you, I'll show you exactly what to do instead. In plain English, in the order you should actually do it. Let me tell you who I am so you know why any of this matters. I've spent the best part of 2 decades sitting across the table from ordinary families, the ones with a paid-off semi and a bit of savings, not the ones with yachts. And in all that time, the most common question I have ever been asked, more than pensions, more than ISAs, more than any clever little investment, is a version of this: should I give the house to the children? And the honest answer, 9 times out of 10, is no. Or at the very least, not like this, not the way you're imagining it. So let's get into why. First, I want you to understand why this question has gone from something I heard maybe once a year to something that now lands on my desk almost every single week. Because the fear driving it is not stupid. It's real. It's just being aimed in completely the wrong direction. 3 things have crashed into each other all at once. The first is the inheritance tax freeze, and I need you to really hear this number because it's genuinely staggering. The main tax-free allowance, the nil rate band, has been stuck at £325,000 since April 2009. Not 2019, 2009. And in the November 2025 budget, the Chancellor extended that freeze yet again, this time all the way out to April 2031. So do the maths with me. By the time that allowance is even scheduled to move, it will have sat completely frozen for 22 years. 22 years. Now, has your house stood still for 22 years? Has it? Of course it hasn't. Here's a figure that should make you sit up. If that allowance had simply kept pace with inflation since 2009, it would be worth somewhere around £525,000 today, instead of 325. That gap, that 200 grand of missing allowance, is being quietly filled by ordinary families getting dragged over a line that was drawn for the genuinely wealthy. There's a proper name for this. It's called fiscal drag. I call it a stealth tax with better manners, and the receipts prove it. The government pulled in around £8.7 billion in inheritance tax last year, and forecasts say that could climb to over £14 billion by the end of the decade, without the headline rate of 40% ever changing. They don't need to raise the tax. They just keep the line still and let your house walk over it. The second thing, and this is the new one, this is the one genuinely driving the current wave of panic. From April 2027, your pension gets pulled into your estate for inheritance tax. For years, decades really, your pension pot was the one big thing that sat safely outside all of this. It was untouchable. A huge number of people were quietly relying on that, treating the pension as the thing they'd pass on clean. From April 2027, for most people, that door slams shut, and that single change is about to shove a whole load of families who were comfortably under the tax line straight over it overnight. And the third thing is care. The cost of it, the sheer terror of it, and that gnawing feeling, fair or not, that the family home gets fed into the machine the very moment you need looking after. Put those 3 fears together: freeze, pensions, care, and what do you get? You get a frightened homeowner sitting at a kitchen table with a land registry form and a biro. And that, I'm afraid, is exactly where it all goes wrong. Now here is the single misunderstanding sitting at the heart of this whole mess. And I promise you, once you see it, You cannot unsee it. People believe that giving something away makes it gone. Off the books, not yours, not counted, not taxed. And for most things, sure, that's true. You give your daughter your old sofa, the sofa is hers. End of story. But both the taxman and the council have a special beady-eyed exception for one specific situation that comes up again and again and again. You give away the house, but you carry on living in it. And the moment you do that, in the eyes of the rules, you haven't actually given anything away at all. You've just done a mountain of paperwork and handed over all your control for absolutely zero benefit. Let me give you the actual machinery, because this is the bit the kitchen table version always skips right over. There is a rule called the gift with reservation of benefit. In the trade, we shorten it to GROB, which is about as charming as it sounds. And the principle behind it is brutally simple. If you give something away but you keep on enjoying it, His Majesty's Revenue and Customs treats it as though you never gave it away in the first place. So you hand the house to the kids, you keep living there rent-free, and then when you die, surprise, the full value of that house is still sat right there in your estate, being taxed at 40%. You did the deed, you took on all the risk, and you got precisely none of the tax saving you were promised. It's the financial equivalent of giving away your umbrella and then standing under it anyway. Now, there is technically a way around the reservation rule, and it is a genuinely miserable one. You pay your own children full market rent to live in your own home. And I don't mean a token tenner a week, I mean a proper, commercial, evidenced rent, the kind of rent a complete stranger would pay to live there. And here's the sting most people miss, that rent your children receive counts as taxable income for them. So they might well be handing a chunk of it straight back to the taxman. When I explain that to people, they tend to go very quiet. Because paying rent to live in the house you spent 30 years of your life buying isn't a clever tax strategy. It's just sad. Now, somebody watching this is already thinking, but what about the 7-year rule? So let's deal with it properly, because it is easily the most misunderstood number in British estate planning. Here's the genuine version. When you give something away, it's called a potentially exempt transfer, a PET, and the word doing all the heavy lifting there is potentially. The gift only becomes fully exempt from inheritance tax if you live for 7 years after making it. Survive 7 years? Clean gift, gone from your estate. Die inside those 7 years and the gift gets hauled right back into the calculation. And here's where the pub version gets it completely wrong. People believe there's a nice, friendly sliding scale from day one. They think a gift made 3 years ago is somehow 70% safe. It is not. There is no taper at all in the first 3 years. None. The reduction in tax, which is called taper relief, doesn't even start to kick in until after year 3. And even then, and this trips up almost everyone, taper relief reduces the tax on the gift, not the value of the gift itself. And it only bites at all once your gifts have already blown through your main tax-free allowance. So for most ordinary estates, taper relief does absolutely nothing anyway. But here is the real killer. This is why the 7-year rule almost never rescues the give the house away plan. The 7-year clock does not even start ticking if you've kept the benefit. Remember the reservation rule? If you've given the house away but you're still living in it rent-free, it is a gift with reservation. And a gift with reservation is not a proper PET. So you can live for 17 years, not 17, and that house still sits in your estate the entire time, fully taxable. I have watched families patiently wait out a 7-year clock that was never actually running. That one genuinely keeps me up at night. So yes, the 7-year rule is real. It works beautifully for cash, for investments, for gifts you have genuinely, completely let go of. For the house you're still sleeping in every single night. It does nothing. Quick thing. If your reaction to any of that was, hang on, nobody has ever explained it to me like this, then that is exactly the gap this channel exists to fill. Subscribing means the next one lands in front of you before you sign something you can't unsign. Right, on we go, because now I want to show you what this actually looks like when it goes wrong with a real family. Well, a composite one. Lawyers, you understand. Let me tell you about a man I'll call Brian. Late 70s, widower, genuinely lovely bloke. Owned his bungalow outright, worth about 300 grand. One son, Mark, whom he trusted completely, and who is, for the record, not the villain in this story. That's the whole point. Nobody in this story is a villain. Brian read something online, a forum post I think, telling him to put the bungalow in Mark's name to protect it. So he did. Signed it over, kept living there. Felt rather pleased with himself. Then life happened in the way that it does. Mark got divorced. And because that bungalow was now legally Mark's asset, it went straight into the divorce pot. A house that Brian had paid off before Mark's wife had even met him was now being valued by a court as part of their settlement. Brian had no say. He wasn't even a party to it. In the eyes of the law, he was just an elderly gentleman who happened to be living in his son's house. Then it got worse. The stress of it all, plus a business loan Mark had personally guaranteed, that went bad. And suddenly, there were creditors circling Mark's assets, including, you've guessed it, the bungalow. Brian's home was now exposed to debts that had absolutely nothing to do with him. He couldn't remortgage it to help. He couldn't sell it to downsize. He couldn't do a single thing because it wasn't his anymore. He had handed over every lever and kept every last drop of the risk. And then the final insult. When Brian's health declined and the family looked into care funding, the council took one look at the timing of that transfer, called it deliberate deprivation of assets, which I'll explain properly in a second, and assessed him as if he still owned the house anyway. So let's tot it up. Brian lost control of his home. He exposed it to a divorce and a mountain of debt that were never his. He saved absolutely nothing on inheritance tax because of the reservation rule, and he didn't dodge a single penny of care fees. 4 for 4. He achieved the perfect score of getting every single thing he was trying to avoid. And here's what I need you to understand. Brian didn't do anything reckless. He did the exact thing thousands of people are still being told to do this week. And that is what makes it a tragedy, rather than just a mistake. Now let me explain that council verdict because it genuinely shocks people how much power sits behind it. When you need residential care and you ask your local authority to help with the cost, they means test you. Fair enough. But they don't just look at what you own today, they look backwards. And if they decide you gave something away deliberately to dodge the care bill, they are allowed to treat you as if you still own it. That's the doctrine of deliberate deprivation of assets. And it's the closest thing the welfare system has to a crystal ball, because they're effectively ruling on what was going on inside your head when you signed. And here is what people get so badly wrong. They obsess over timing. If I gift it more than X years before I need care, I'm safe. Let me be completely clear. There is no such number. None. Unlike the 7-year inheritance tax rule, there is no time limit whatsoever on how far back a council can look. 1 year, 10 years, 20 years, they can go back as far as they like. What they're actually weighing up is 2 things. Your motivation and foreseeability at the point you gave it away. Was needing care a reasonable thing to expect? Gift the house at 62 in robust health for genuine family reasons? That's a completely different conversation from gifting it at 81, the week after a dementia diagnosis. One of those looks like life. The other looks like a dodge, and believe me, they can tell the difference. A couple of quick regional notes, because this channel has viewers all over the UK. In England, the upper savings threshold is due to rise, meaning more people should qualify for some council help. Scotland runs its own system entirely, with free personal and nursing care for those assessed as needing it. So the whole picture is genuinely different up there. If that's you, take Scotland's specific advice rather than anything I say about England. But the headline holds absolutely everywhere. Giving the house away does not reliably beat a care assessment, and pretending you can outsmart the timing is precisely how families end up with the worst of both worlds. Right. Enough doom. Here is the part nobody clicks for and everybody actually needs. What to do instead. And I'm going to give it to you as a ladder. You start at the bottom rung. You only climb as high as your situation genuinely requires. And here's the truth. Most people never need to leave the bottom 2 rungs. Rung 1. Check whether you even have a problem in the first place. This is the rung everyone skips, and it's the most important one. A single person can pass on up to £500,000 completely tax-free. That's the 325,000 nil rate band plus 175,000 residence allowance for leaving your home to your children or grandchildren. And a married couple or civil partners, they can stack both of their allowances and pass on up to £1 million between them, entirely free of inheritance tax. Because when the first one dies, the unused allowance transfers across to the second. £1 million. I cannot tell you how many people walk into my office absolutely terrified of a tax bill they simply do not have once you actually do the arithmetic. They were about to set fire to their home ownership to solve a problem that didn't even exist. One quick warning though, that transfer between spouses is not automatic. Somebody has to actively claim it after the second death. Miss that claim, and you can lose hundreds of thousands. So before you do anything else, do the sum, or get someone to do it for you. You may well be done already. Rung 2. Get the foundations in the right order. Long before any clever structure. You need two things: a properly drafted will and, I cannot say this loudly enough, a lasting power of attorney. Ideally, two of them. One for your finances and one for your health. And here is why this beats every clever tax trick on this entire list. Without a power of attorney, if you lose mental capacity, nobody, not your spouse, not your children, nobody can manage your home or your money without going to the court of protection. And that is slow, it is expensive, and it is almost entirely avoidable. I promise you, far more families are hurt by not having this than are ever hurt by inheritance tax. It is the least glamorous item on this whole channel, and it is the single most important. Do it first. Rung 3. Use the gifting rules the way they were actually designed to be used. And notice, I'm talking about gifting money here, not the roof over your head. You can give away £3,000 every single tax year that is immediately exempt. No 7-year wait, plus smaller gifts of £250 to as many people as you like. But here's the big one, the one almost nobody uses, and it is genuinely elegant. If you have more income than you spend, you can make regular gifts out of your surplus income. And here is the magic. Those gifts fall straight out of your estate immediately. No 7-year clock at all. There is no upper limit on this. None. The only cap is your genuine surplus. Say a retired couple bring in £70,000 a year and spend £50,000. That £20,000 of surplus can be gifted every year, completely free of inheritance tax, forever. The three conditions are simple. It has to come from income, not capital. It has to be part of a regular pattern, and it can't dent your own standard of living. Keep a simple record of it each year, and you have a quiet, powerful, completely legitimate way to shrink your estate. It is the polar opposite of dumping the whole house on the kids in one panicked afternoon. Rung 4. The new pension reality, and this one is urgent. Because pensions get pulled into the inheritance tax net from April 2027, the entire strategy has flipped on its head. For years, the standard advice was, spend everything but the pension, protect the pension at all costs. Now, for a lot of people, it's the exact reverse. Drawing on your pension during your lifetime or deliberately spending it down can now make far more sense than leaving it to be taxed at 40% on death. I'm not going to throw a number at you because it depends entirely on your circumstances. But if you have a meaningful pension pot that you've always treated as the untouchable inheritance, that assumption needs revisiting this year with an advisor before that April 2027 deadline lands. Rung 5. And only now do we get here. Structures, trusts, and the more involved arrangements. These genuinely do have their place. Blended families, protecting a child's inheritance from their own future divorce, controlling exactly when your children inherit. Second marriage worries, but they cost money to set up and money to run. They need proper specialist advice. And here's the crucial bit. Putting your home into a trust and then carrying on living in it usually does not dodge inheritance tax either, for the exact same reservation of benefit reason we covered earlier. A trust is a tool for control and protection. It is not a magic inheritance tax eraser. and anyone trying to sell it to you as one is selling, not advising. If you take nothing else from this entire video, take this one single test because it cuts straight through almost every bad idea in this area. Ask yourself, am I trying to give something away while still keeping the use of it? If the answer is yes, if you want it gone for the council and the taxman, but you also want to live in it, control it, and sleep soundly in it, then stop, because the rules were written specifically and deliberately to catch exactly that. And you will lose. Real planning means genuinely letting go of the things you can afford to let go of, and properly protecting the things you can't. It does not mean some magic trick where the house is both yours and not yours, depending on who happens to be asking. There is no such trick. There never was. So let's bring it home. Gifting the house to the kids feels like a shortcut. In reality, it's a trapdoor. You lose control of your own home. You expose it to your children's divorces and their debts. You almost never actually escape the inheritance tax because of the reservation rule, and you don't reliably beat a care assessment either. It is the rare decision that can fail in 4 different directions at the very same time. What works instead is dull. And dull in this world is exactly what you want. Check whether you even have a bill in the first place. Most people don't. Get your will and your powers of attorney in place before anything else on earth. Use the proper gifting allowances, especially those beautiful gifts out of surplus income. Rethink that pension before April 2027 arrives. And only then, only if your situation genuinely calls for it, look at a trust with a proper advisor, set up early and for the right reasons. Never as a panic move once care is already on the horizon. Because the worst decisions in this entire area are never made out of greed. They're made out of fear, at a kitchen table, with a biro and a half-remembered forum post. So don't plan from fear. Plan from the arithmetic. And I should say what I always say. I'm an accountant. I am not your accountant. Nothing here is personal advice. The rules differ across the UK. And your own circumstances change absolutely everything, so take proper, tailored advice before you do anything irreversible. But if you know somebody who is halfway to signing their house over to the kids, do them a favour and send them this first. Consider it a public service. Slightly fewer sirens, considerably more spreadsheets. I'll see you in the next one.